When Michelle Obama shocked viewers by accusing Texas Governor Greg Abbott of being a fraud on live TV, the moment instantly went viral. But what happened next stunned everyone. Abbott, now serving as the strong and unyielding leader of Texas, delivered a powerful clapback that Michelle never saw coming. This fiery exchange is shaking up politics and sparking major debate online. The cameras flashed, the audience clapped, and the live show rolled smoothly until Michelle Obama leaned forward with a fiery glare. Her voice cut across the stage, sharp and deliberate. Greg Abbott is nothing more than a hypocrite hiding behind his wheelchair, Michelle said, her words echoing like a gunshot. He strips rights away from immigrants, slashes education budgets, and dares to call himself a leader of the people. Maybe the people of Texas should strip him of the governor's seat. Gasps filled the studio. Viewers at home froze. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Michelle wasn't done. He has ties to corrupt oil lobbyists, she continued, and let's not forget the families in Texas left without power during his failed leadership in the storm. That's who represents America now. The audience shifted uneasily. The host looked stunned, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the drama unfold. Social media was already exploding, clips being replayed and shared within seconds. Abbott sat still, his face calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. He wasn't someone who loved fights, but this attack on his character, his leadership, and his state cut too deep. Inside him, something powerful was stirring. Millions of Americans leaned closer to their screens. They had no idea what was about to come next. The air was heavy. Michelle leaned back, smirking, certain she had won the crowd. She whispered something to the host, and laughter rolled through the audience. But Abbott, the governor of Texas, slowly lifted his head. His voice was calm, yet his words carried weight. My fellow Texans endured the storm with strength, and I stood with them every single day, he began firmly. I will never apologize for fighting for my state. I will never apologize for protecting Texas values. And how dare you mock the people who work day and night to rebuild their homes? The room grew silent. Michelle shifted in her chair, her smile fading slightly. You call me a fraud because I fight for border security, because I defend Texas families, Abbott continued. But let me remind you, this is the United States of America, where states have the right to protect their people. I am a Texan. I am an American. And no one, not even you, will erase that. His words were steady, but the storm inside him had only begun. Some in the audience started clapping. Others pulled out their phones, recording every second. Something was building. Michelle tried to cut in, raising her voice. Oh, please, don't try to play the hero. We all know what you are. But Abbott didn't flinch. He turned directly to the camera, speaking not just to Michelle, but to millions of Americans watching. You talk about me as if I don't belong in leadership. But let me tell you what does not belong: corruption, lies, and stealing from the people. The audience gasped. Michelle blinked rapidly, her confidence shaken. Yes, Michelle, Abbott said firmly, his eyes locked on his opponent. You accuse me because you are jealous. Jealous that I am doing the work as a governor that you could not do in your years of influence. You smiled, you traveled, you gave speeches. But behind the curtain, millions of taxpayer dollars disappeared. Where did they go? Whispers filled the studio. People leaned forward. Michelle's face stiffened. Do not dare insult the people of Texas while your own record is full of fraud, Abbott finished. The audience erupted in shock. For the first time, Michelle looked rattled. And this was just the beginning. The host finally tried to step in, raising his hands. Maybe we should, but it was too late. The crowd had turned into a storm. Half of them gasped at Abbott's words. The other half shouted at Michelle, demanding answers. Phones were lifted high. Every second captured and streamed live. Michelle shifted in her seat, forcing a smile. Don't twist this, Abbott. You're only trying to distract from your failures. Abbott's eyes narrowed. Distract? No, Michelle, I am speaking truth. Do you remember the so-called education program you promoted during your time as First Lady? The audience leaned closer. Abbott's voice grew firmer. You stood on stages waving to children, promising them laptops and better schools. But millions of taxpayer dollars vanished. They didn't reach those children. Where did the money go? A hush fell across the room. Michelle's smile cracked. Her fingers tightened on the armrest. For the first time, she looked unsettled. The crowd sensed it. The viewers at home felt it. Something dangerous was unraveling. And Michelle knew Abbot wasn't done. This wasn't the reaction Michelle expected, but Abbot wasn't finished. He leaned forward, his tone turning sharp again. You say I should step down, but I was elected legally by the people of Texas. You know this. You choose lies because you cannot stand that I serve my state with dignity. Michelle swallowed hard. She had no quick comeback. The host whispered into his earpiece, unsure whether to cut the broadcast, but the producers shook their heads. This was gold, too explosive to stop. Abbot turned fully toward Michelle. You talk about corruption, but let us speak of truth. During your husband's presidency, your office received billions in funds, travel budgets, entertainment budgets, event budgets, yet America saw little return. Where did the money go, Michelle? Michelle's eyes darted nervously. That's not what we're talking about. But the audience had already shifted. The whispers grew louder. People were nodding, murmuring about scandals they had once dismissed. Abbot pressed on. You call me jealous? No, Michelle, the jealousy is yours. You see that I have built respect with hard work, protecting Texas families, veterans, and businesses. Things you pretended to care about while taking from the people. The crowd roared, half in shock, half in support. Cameras zoomed in on Michelle's face, pale, sweating, lips trembling. For the first time in years, Michelle Obama had no words. And Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, had only just begun. Michelle shifted uncomfortably, tugging at her sleeve, but Abbott pressed forward. His voice was calm, yet every word hit like a hammer. Do you remember the international tour you took, Michelle? Abbott asked, his tone steady. The one where you claimed it was for education reform. Records show you spent over $20 million of taxpayer money on luxury hotels, private parties, and designer clothing. The schools never saw that money. The crowd gasped. The host's jaw dropped. Abbott raised his hand gently. I do not like fighting. I do not like drama. But when you insult Texas, when you mock the people who work every day to keep this nation strong, I will not stay silent. Texans work harder than you ever did in your life. They raise families with dignity. And today, they are watching this broadcast. They will not cry because their governor stands strong. Tears began streaming down faces in the audience. Michelle looked furious but cornered. Her lips trembled as she tried to find words, but Abbott's gaze was unshakable. The governor of Texas had turned the tables. The studio's atmosphere shifted. What had begun as laughter at Michelle's mockery was now turning into respect for Abbott. A woman in the audience shouted, "We believe you, Abbott!" Others clapped loudly. The chant grew. "Abbott! Abbott!" Michelle's face reddened. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "You're twisting facts." Abbott interrupted with a steady voice. "Facts are not twisted, Michelle, Mom. They are written in public record. You cannot erase them. Americans trusted you and you failed them. You accuse me, but it is you who betrayed trust." The host looked toward the control booth. Producers scribbled notes, realizing this moment would become one of the most replayed broadcasts in American history. Abbott continued, his voice shaking slightly now with emotion. You see me as weak because of my wheelchair, because of my conservative values, because I stand firm. But let me tell you, Michelle, weak men do not survive paralysis. Weak men do not carry a state through disasters. Weak men do not fight daily battles for freedom and still stand tall. The crowd rose to its feet, clapping thunderously. Michelle lowered her eyes, her power slipping away. By now, the broadcast had spread like wildfire. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube were flooded with clips. Millions were watching live, millions more replaying every word. Abbott leaned closer to the microphone. You call me jealous, but Michelle, tell America this. How much money from your so-called charity foundations actually reached the people? How many millions went missing into private accounts? Gasps thundered across the studio. Michelle froze, her face pale. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Abbott's voice rose, filled with pain, but also with pride. You insult the people of Texas, but I will remind you, Texans gave me strength and honesty. Can you say the same to your daughters? Can you look them in the eyes and say, you never stole from the people? The audience erupted, many in tears. Some chanted, others shouted, "Answer her, Michelle." Michelle's silence was louder than any denial. Abbot finally leaned back, his eyes glistening but strong. "No one mocks Texas. Not you, not anyone, and no one lies to America without being exposed." The moment shattered Michelle's image forever. Michelle finally found her voice. Her tone was shaky but loud. "These are lies. None of what you're saying is true." But the people weren't convinced. The audience murmured, some shaking their heads, others whispering about reports they had once seen in the news but ignored. The truth now felt real, live, undeniable. Abbot didn't shout back. Instead, he spoke softly, his calm voice cutting sharper than any scream. "You insult me. You insult the people of Texas. But I stand here with nothing to hide. You, Michelle, hide behind words. But the truth is clear. You spent taxpayer money as if it belonged to you. Vacations, private jets, designer clothes, events that helped no one." His eyes glistened as he placed his hand firmly on the desk. "I may sit in a wheelchair, but my father raised me with one lesson. Abbot, always protect your name and never let anyone drag it through the mud. Today, I protect that name, and I protect the people who trust me." The crowd roared with thunderous applause. Michelle blinked rapidly, realizing she was losing everything. Across the country, people glued themselves to their screens. In living rooms, coffee shops, and restaurants, silence hung heavy as Abbott's words replayed. Clips exploded online. The hashtags Abbot Speaks and Truth Exposed were already trending. Michelle's voice quivered. You don't understand the weight of national leadership." Abbot leaned in. "I understand it well, Michelle. But the difference is I did not use my office for my gain. I use it for Texans, for veterans, for families who cannot speak for themselves. While you, Michelle, used power for yourself." The host's hand shook as he held his cue cards. Producers whispered furiously, realizing they were witnessing history. Abbott's voice dropped low, almost breaking with emotion. "My injury never stopped me from serving. And if I can fight through pain every single day to lead my state, then I will stand here tonight and fight lies too. I stand for Texans, for my family, for America." The audience rose to their feet. Tears filled the eyes of men and women alike. Michelle sat frozen, cornered, trembling. The atmosphere was electric. The once confident Michelle Obama looked small, dwarfed by the calm but blazing presence of Greg Abbott. Abbott pressed his hand against the desk, his voice now like thunder. "You accuse me of corruption, Michelle Obama, but what are you hiding? Shall we talk about the millions from your foundations that disappeared? Shall we talk about the events where money went missing, while children still begged for books?" The crowd gasped again. The host nearly dropped his microphone. Michelle's lips parted, but her silence said more than words. Abbott turned to the camera, addressing not just Michelle, but the American people. "I may roll in here on wheels. I may not fit your idea of power, but my heart speaks truth, and I will never allow lies to stand when my state or my country is mocked." Tears streamed down faces in the audience. Some openly sobbed. The applause shook the walls. Viewers across America cried, seeing a side of Abbott they had never seen before. Resilient, strong, unbreakable. Michelle slumped in her chair. The battle was turning, and everyone knew it. She forced a nervous laugh. "This is entertainment, isn't it? He's just performing for the cameras." But no one laughed with her. The audience stayed silent, their eyes locked on Abbott. Abbott tilted his head, his voice calm but piercing. "This is not performance. This is my life, my people, my truth. You insult them, you insult me. You insult the millions of Americans who work hard every day to build a better life." Gasps echoed. Abbott's words hit deep, not just at Michelle, but at every citizen watching from home. Michelle stammered, "Well, you still don't belong in that seat." Abbott leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "I belong here because I earned the trust of millions of Texans. I belong here because I fought for their votes, their rights, their safety." "What did you earn, Michelle? Except money that was never yours." The audience erupted in cheers, tears streamed down faces. Michelle's forced smile collapsed. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. The producers whispered frantically into headsets, "Don't cut, don't interrupt, let it play." Ratings were exploding. Millions more had joined the live stream. Abbott's voice grew stronger. You talk about loyalty, Michelle. But do you remember the report from 2016? The one that revealed your foundation spent $14 million on administrative costs while schools still crumbled? That money could have given children books, but instead it gave you banquets and trips. The crowd gasped loudly. Even the host's hand trembled, nearly dropping his pen. Abbott's eyes filled with fire, but his voice was steady. Texans are watching this broadcast tonight. They see their governor stand strong. They see that no one makes a mockery of their work. They gave me honesty. You gave America lies. The audience burst into applause, many openly crying. Women hugged each other in the crowd. Michelle's lips quivered. She tried to interrupt, but the chant began again. Abbott! 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 It was clear the people had chosen a side. Michelle pressed her hands together, her voice cracking. This is character assassination. You're destroying me with rumors. Abbott turned calmly toward her. No, Michelle, you destroyed yourself with greed. I am only speaking what America already knows, but was too afraid to say. The audience roared. Abbott then softened his tone, his words glistening under the stage lights. You say I don't belong, but my office is real. My oath to Texas is real, and my love for this country is real. My oath to Texas is real. My love for this country is real. And unlike you, Michelle, I did not take from the people. I gave. Abbott's voice cracked as he spoke the last words. I gave decades of my life to public service. I gave my strength, even from a wheelchair, to stand for Texans, and I will honor that trust by serving with dignity. The studio erupted. Viewers across America were crying. Social media exploded with support. Michelle sat frozen, her power shattered, her image collapsing in real time. And Abbott stood taller than ever. Michelle gripped the table, her voice rising with desperation. Don't let him fool you. This is nothing but an act. He is trying to make himself a victim because his past is questionable. The crowd booed loudly. The chants for Abbott drowned Michelle out. Abbott lifted his hand gently, silencing the noise. He spoke with calmness that struck deeper than any shout. No, Michelle, my life is not a performance. My pain is not staged. My father watching right now is a man who sacrificed everything so I could rise above tragedy. He is proud of me. He is not the weak man you mock. He is my strength. His eyes filled with tears, and he paused. The studio was so silent one could hear a pin drop. America gave me a home, and Texas gave me purpose. I love this nation with all my heart. But what you did, Michelle, was take from America. That is not love. That is betrayal. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, many standing on their feet with tears running down their cheeks. Michelle's eyes widened. She knew the tide had fully turned. Abbott inhaled deeply, his voice trembling but firm. You accuse me of ties with corruption? The truth, Michelle, is that you built ties with corruption right here in America. Your programs promised hope, yet children are still without proper education. Veterans are still waiting for support. Where did the money go? The crowd gasped loudly again. Michelle stammered. That's not true. Abbott's tone sharpened. It is true. Reports are clear. The records are there. You mocked my wheelchair, my leadership, my values. But the truth is stronger than your words. You envy me because I serve quietly and faithfully. Something you could not do, even with all the cameras in the world. His tears finally rolled down his cheeks. I am not perfect, but I am honest. I stand for Texans who trusted me, and no insult from you will ever erase that. The audience broke into thunderous applause, many sobbing uncontrollably. Michelle lowered her head, visibly shaking. By now, millions were watching live. Social media exploded with clips, memes, and hashtags. Abbott Truth and Michelle Exposed trended globally. Michelle raised her trembling voice one last time. You're twisting everything. This is not fair. You don't know what I went through. Abbott leaned forward, his face calm, his voice piercing. You went through luxury. You went through privilege. You went through millions of taxpayer dollars that never reached the people. Do not speak of suffering while you laughed on red carpets and dined in palaces. The crowd gasped and clapped wildly. Michelle's face paled, sweat glistening on her forehead. Abbot then turned to the camera, speaking directly to America. My service is real. My fight for Texans is real. My commitment to this country is real. Michelle insulted me, insulted Texans, insulted every American who works hard for this nation. But today, I speak for all of them, and I will not be silenced. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation, tears streaming. Michelle slumped back, utterly defeated. The camera zoomed in on her pale face, her lips trembling. The once confident woman who mocked Abbot only minutes ago now looked like a shadow of herself. Abbot stood tall, his voice firm but not cruel. You thought mocking me would break me, but instead you reminded me who I fight for. Texans are not weak. They are people of honor. And even in hardship, they stand taller than your insults. The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. Some audience members wiped away their tears. Abbott's voice lowered, but every word hit like stone. Michelle, when you mock me, you mock millions of hardworking Americans, families who struggle, who sacrifice, who build lives of dignity. You didn't just attack me, you attacked them. And tonight, they will see who truly respects them. Michelle's eyes filled with tears, but she turned away from the camera, unable to respond. The power had shifted entirely. Suddenly, voices rose from the crowd. We stand with Abbot, one woman shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. Another man yelled, tell the truth, Michelle. The chants grew louder, shaking the studio. Abbot! Abbot! Michelle tried to hold back tears. This isn't fair. This isn't fair, she whispered. But the microphone caught every word. Abbot looked at her, his eyes soft but unyielding. It is not about fair, Michelle. It is about truth, and truth has a way of shining even in the darkest lies. The camera cut to the audience. Mothers clutched their children. Veterans wiped their eyes. Veterans wiped their eyes. Across America, millions felt the weight of his words. Abbott's voice cracked with emotion. I never came here looking for fights. I came here to serve quietly, to work for my state, for my people. But today, Michelle, you insulted the dignity of Texans, the strength of veterans, and the future of the children I swore to protect. That I will never allow. The crowd thundered. The standing ovation went on for minutes. Michelle buried her face in her hands. She tried one last time, her voice shaking, her words stumbling. I only said what people think. I only wanted to protect. Abbott's eyes blazed as he cut in. Protect? You wanted to humiliate me, but instead you humiliated yourself. You wanted America to laugh at Texas, but tonight America stands with Texas and against you. The audience gasped. Michelle's face turned red with shame. Abbot turned to the camera, his tone softer now. America, you deserve leaders who respect you. You deserve men and women who serve with dignity, not corruption. You deserve honesty. Tears streamed down his cheeks, his voice breaking with emotion. I am not perfect, but I will always serve with heart, not for money, not for fame, but for love of Texas and love of this nation. The audience erupted with thunderous applause, many crying openly. Michelle sat frozen, her head bowed low. She knew she was finished. Abbot, with truth and emotion, had claimed victory in front of the world. Michelle wiped at her face, but the cameras caught every tear, every tremble. She tried to force a smile, but it looked broken, fragile, unreal. Abbot remained steady, his voice carrying calm authority. You thought you could shame me. Instead, you shamed yourself. You thought you could insult Texas, but tonight America sees who truly carries dignity. The crowd roared, their cheers echoing like thunder. Michelle whispered into the microphone, almost pleading, "Stop, please stop." But Abbot did not raise his voice or mock. He simply said, I will stop when truth is clear, and tonight, truth has spoken. Michelle lowered her head, unable to look up. For the first time in her public life, she seemed utterly powerless. The producers debated cutting to commercial, but the director shook his head. Let it roll. This is history. And indeed it was. Within minutes, social media caught fire. Clips of the exchange raced across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Hashtags like Abbot Strong, Truth Over Lies, and Michelle Exposed trended globally. Americans at home sat glued to their screens. In small towns, families gathered around TVs, tears streaming. In city apartments, young people replayed the moment again and again, shaking their heads in disbelief. On Facebook, veterans groups shared Abbott's words, "I will not let lies erase what Texas has built." Mothers posted videos of themselves crying, saying, "He spoke for us." Michelle's defenders tried to rally, but the footage was too raw, too powerful. Every denial only made things worse. Meanwhile, Abbott sat quietly on stage, not gloating, not mocking, just holding his ground with grace. He had not just defended himself, he had defended every Texan, every veteran, every hard-working family that had ever been mocked or overlooked. The impact was already larger than anyone imagined. Back in the studio, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The audience no longer looked at Michelle. Their eyes were locked on Abbott. Some clapped, others wiped their tears. Many simply stood silent in awe. Abbott raised his hand gently, signaling for calm. "I am not here to fight. I am not here to tear people down. But when someone insults Texas, my family, my state, I will not stay silent." His voice trembled as he pressed his hand to his chest. "I carry the honor of Texans with me. And tonight, I will not allow anyone to mock their sacrifice." The room exploded in applause. Michelle sat slumped, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Her earlier laughter, her taunts, her boldness, all had crumbled. America had witnessed something rare. A man in a wheelchair standing taller than his opponent, shattering lies with truth. And it was only the beginning of the storm to come. The studio cameras stayed fixed on Michelle, but she couldn't lift her head. Her shoulders slumped, her lips trembled, her hands shook as she fumbled with her notes. The boldness that had carried her minutes earlier was gone. Abbott sat gracefully, his calmness towering over the chaos. He didn't gloat, he didn't smile, he simply waited. Finally, Michelle whispered into her mic, "Maybe I should go." Gasps filled the room. Some audience members shouted, "Don't run now." Others booed, furious that she had mocked Abbott so cruelly and now wanted to escape. The host looked to the producers for direction, but the decision was clear. The broadcast would not cut. America was watching history. Abbott leaned slightly forward. "You can leave if you wish, Michelle, but remember this, truth always follows. Whether you stay in this chair or walk out of the studio, the truth will remain." The audience erupted into applause, chanting Abbott's name again. Michelle's face flushed deep red. For the first time in her public life, she looked utterly humiliated. By now, the entire country was watching. Families sat in silence, eyes glued to their televisions. Elderly parents dabbed their eyes with tissues. Veterans clenched their fists with pride. Texans cried openly, whispering, "He spoke for us." Social media was a firestorm. Clips of Abbott's words had already been viewed tens of millions of times. Even critics admitted they had never seen him like this. Strong, emotional, unshakable. In living rooms across America, mothers hugged their children tighter. Fathers told their sons, "This is what dignity looks like." Inside the studio, Abbott spoke again, his voice trembling but strong. "I am not just standing for myself. I am standing for every family mocked, every veteran shamed, every Texan insulted. This is not only my fight, it is ours." The audience rose again to their feet. Some sobbed, some clapped so hard their palms turned red. Michelle sat frozen, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. The battle was no longer just personal. It was national. Michelle tried one last time, her voice faint. I didn't mean. I was only joking." The audience booed loudly. The sound was deafening. Abbott shook his head gently. "Mockery is not a joke. Insulting Texans is not a joke. Lying to America is not a joke. And tonight, America has seen the truth." His tears fell as he pressed his hand to his chest. "I carry the spirit of Texans with me. My parents raised me with honor. And to every child, every mother, every father watching, know this, you are not weak because of where you come from. You are strong because of what you overcome." The studio thundered with applause. People sobbed openly, unable to hold back their emotions. Michelle lowered her head into her hands, unable to face the crowd. Cameras zoomed in as she whispered, "I can't do this anymore." And just like that, Michelle Obama, the woman who thought she had won, was completely exposed. Her image shattered. Greg Abbott had stood tall, and America stood with him. The studio fell into absolute silence as Michelle lowered her face into her hands. The same woman who had mocked Abbott minutes earlier now sat broken, unable to recover. Slowly, she rose from her chair. Her steps were shaky, her eyes red. The audience booed as she tried to leave quietly, but every move was caught on live television. The once powerful Michelle Obama was walking off in disgrace. Abbott didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply sat still. His eyes filled with tears, but his posture calm and resolute. As Michelle disappeared backstage, chants filled the air. "Abbott! Abbott! Abbott!" The host leaned forward, stunned, and whispered into the microphone, "America has just witnessed history tonight." Abbott looked into the camera, ready for his closing words. The silence was so deep, millions leaned forward to hear his heart. He placed his hand gently over his chest. His voice trembled, but every word carried power. Tonight was not about me. Tonight was about truth. It was about respect. And it was about love for this country. The audience hushed, hanging on his every word. My father is watching. He is an old man, but tonight he sees his son stand strong. My mother is gone, but her spirit lives with me. She taught me never to allow lies to destroy dignity, and tonight I kept her lesson. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he continued. To every Texan, every veteran, every family watching, I want you to know your story matters. Your struggle matters. Your love for America matters. Do not let anyone mock you or your family. Stand proud, you belong. The studio shook with thunderous applause. People sobbed openly across the nation. Screens flickered with tears and hope. Abbott had transformed a cruel insult into a moment of unity. The broadcast ended with Abbott's eyes locked firmly into the camera. His voice, though soft, struck every heart watching. I did not ask for this fight. But when you mock Texas, I will defend it. And when you mock the people of America, I will stand for them. No lie can erase love. No insult can erase dignity. And no attack can erase truth. The audience rose to their feet, clapping until their palms burned. Millions watching at home wiped tears from their faces. As the camera zoomed closer, Abbott's voice carried one final call. If you believe in truth, if you believe in family, if you believe in America, stand with me. Share your voice. Share your story. Together we will stand for dignity, for family, and for America. The applause roared like thunder. The nation was shaken. And in that single night, Greg Abbott had turned tears into triumph.